2 women. 1 roof. 0 bullets left in my diplomatic arsenal. In my line of work, I've orchestrated hostile takeovers, negotiated ceasefires with men who wear their kill count like designer watches, and once made a prosecutor disappear so cleanly his own mother thought he'd retired to Jeju Island. But nothing prepared me for the catastrophic poetry of watching my wife and my mistress size each other up across my marble foyer like rival empresses claiming the same throne. The jasmine hit me first. That's always how I knew Jia was near, her perfume, cold and expensive as a winter funeral, the kind of scent that announces, I was bred for this, before she even enters the room. She stood there in white silk that probably cost more than most people's cars, hair pulled back so tight it could have been a weapon, arms crossed in that way that said I have endured worse than you. And she had. Our marriage wasn't love, it was a treaty signed in blood and witnessed by men in expensive suits who counted bodies instead of blessings. Then there was the red. Samira Blackwell walked into my home, my carefully sanitized, politically acceptable home, wearing that dress like a declaration of war. Crimson. Fitted. Unapologetic. Her curls loose and wild in a way that made Jia's perfect bun look like a military operation. She smelled like bourbon and vanilla and every bad decision I'd ever made but couldn't bring myself to regret. She looked at my wife. My wife looked at her. I looked at the door and wondered if anyone would notice if the most feared man in Seoul just ran. So, Samira said, her American accent cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. This is the Ice Palace. It's exactly as depressing as you described, baby. Baby. She really just said that. In my house. In front of my wife. With that smile that suggested she knew exactly what grenade she'd just pulled the pin from. Jia's expression didn't change, it never did, but I saw her jaw tighten. That tiny muscle near her temple that only moved when she was calculating exactly how to destroy someone without raising her voice. And you, Jia said, her Korean precise and sharp as a surgeon's scalpel, must be the complication my husband brought home. She paused just long enough to make complication sound like something you'd scrape off your shoe. How American of you to arrive uninvited. Oh honey, Samira replied, switching to surprisingly decent Korean, I was very much invited. After someone tried to turn my lounge into a shooting gallery. Her eyes found mine, dark and knowing. Isn't that right, Appa? I was going to die. Not from the Kuroda clan's bullets or Yakuza blades or political assassination. I was going to die right here, suffocated by the sheer concentrated judgment of 2 women who both had excellent reasons to want me dead. Jia, I started, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. We need to talk. No, my wife interrupted, her tone so cold I could feel ice forming in my lungs. We really don't. She turned those razor-sharp eyes on me. You've made your choice abundantly clear, Murayak. You've just brought her to my home to, what? Rub it in. Parade your poor judgment in front of the ancestors whose portraits line these walls. Our home, I corrected, though even I wasn't sure why I was picking that battle. And it's not safe for her out there. The Kurodas. Ah yes. Jia's smile was colder than her perfume. The Kurodas. The mess you created by being reckless with your affections. She looked at Samira again, evaluating. Tell me, Miss Blackwell, do you even understand what you've walked into? Or did my husband forget to mention that loving him comes with a complimentary target on your back? Samira's smile didn't waver, but I saw her shoulders square, she was tougher than Jia thought. Tougher than she had any right to be. Oh, I'm aware. Someone already sent flowers. By which I mean bullets. Through my windows. While I was working. She tilted her head. But I appreciate the concern, Mrs. Kong. Really warms the heart. I doubt you have one, Jia replied smoothly. Ladies, I tried. Don't. They said it in unison, which would have been funny if I wasn't genuinely concerned about my survival rate. The thing about being a mafia boss is that you get used to fear. You weaponize it. You cultivate it. You become the thing that makes other men check under their beds at night. But this? Standing between a wife who was raised to be ice and a mistress who was born to be fire. This was the kind of fear that made me want to call my mother. If she weren't already disappointed in me for entirely different reasons. Guest room, Jia said finally, her tone suggesting this was my execution order, not a hospitality offer. 3rd floor. East wing. As far from our bedroom as architecturally possible. She looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something crack in that perfect facade. Pain, maybe. Or just exhaustion. Since you've already destroyed our marriage, at least have the decency to keep the evidence at a distance. She turned and walked away, silk whispering against marble, jasmine lingering in her wake like a ghost. Samira watched her go, then turned those knowing eyes on me. She's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone weaker, maybe. Someone you could have just left. She stepped closer, and my traitorous heart kicked up despite everything. But she's strong, isn't she? Just differently. Samira. She pressed one finger to my lips, red nails matching her dress. Don't explain. Not tonight. Her smile turned wicked. But just so we're clear, Appa, I'm not staying in the East Wing. And that's when I knew, the Yakuza trying to kill us was going to be the easy part. The real war was about to begin under my own roof. Between two queens. For one completely unworthy king. God help me. The bullet hole in Samira's office window was still smoking when I made the decision that would either save her life or end mine. You're insane, Min-jae said, my second-in-command looking at me like I'd just announced plans to retire and open a bakery. You want to bring her to the estate? Where your wife lives? Where else? I snapped, watching the forensics team pull slugs from the wall behind Samira's desk. 7.62 mm. Kuroda signatures all over it. Professional. Precise. And 6 inches from where her head had been an hour ago. The lounge is compromised. Her apartment is worse. Every safe house we have is on their radar by now. Min-jae ran a hand through his hair, a tell that meant he knew I was right but hated it. Boss, with all respect, this is the only option. I turned away from the window, from the evidence that my carefully separated worlds had just collided with the subtlety of a train wreck. They know about her. They're making a statement. Which means every property connected to me, every hotel, every. Except the one place that's supposed to be untouchable, he finished quietly. Exactly. The estate. My marriage fortress. The pristine monument to duty and bloodlines and everything I was supposed to be. Protected by walls and guards and the unspoken rule that even my enemies respected the sanctity of a man's home. At least, they used to. And Mrs. Kong? Min-jae asked carefully. You're just going to, what? Ask permission. I almost laughed. Permission. As if I'd had permission to fall for Samira in the first place. As if any of this had been planned. I'm going to tell her the truth, I said. That a war is coming, and keeping Samira visible is the same as painting a target on her back. Jia is many things, but she's not cruel. She'll understand the strategic necessity. Min-jae's expression suggested he thought I was delusional, but he was too well trained to say it. And Miss Blackwell? She agreed to this? I thought about Samira, still shaking from the adrenaline, glass in her hair, that red dress torn at the shoulder from when I'd tackled her to the ground. The way she'd looked at me, not with fear, but with fury. This is your world bleeding into mine, she'd said. And I'm tired of paying for your wars. She wasn't wrong. She doesn't have a choice, I said, hating how it sounded. How it made me the villain in a story where I was supposed to be protecting her. None of us do. The Kurodas won't stop until they've proven I'm weak. And they think she's my weakness. Is she? Min-jae asked. I looked at him, this man who'd stood beside me through gang wars and boardroom coups and every bloody step up the ladder. Who knew exactly what I was risking? Yes, I admitted. Which is why she needs to disappear. And the best place to hide a mistress is in plain sight, Min Jae finished. In your wife's house. Under her nose. Where no one would ever think to look because it's so absolutely, categorically insane. Exactly. He shook his head slowly, but I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. You know what, boss? I've followed you into some crazy situations. But this? He gestured at the bullet-riddled office. This is going to be the one that kills you. And it won't even be the Kurodas who do it. He wasn't wrong about that either. I pulled out my phone, looked at the two names that had defined my existence for the past 3 years. Jia. Samira. Wife. Mistress. Ice. Fire. And me, the fool in the middle, about to set his whole world ablaze. I dialed. We need to talk, I said when Jia answered. I'm bringing someone home. The silence on the other end was colder than winter. How, unexpected, she said finally. I'll have the guest room prepared. She hung up before I could explain. Before I could apologize. Before I could tell her that I knew exactly what I was asking, and that I'd never forgive myself for it. But then again, forgiveness had never been part of our arrangement. The thing about bringing your mistress home to meet your wife is that there's no etiquette book for it. No helpful guide titled "So You've Decided to Commit Social Suicide, a Mafia Boss's Journey." I should have written one. Could have made millions. Samira's heels clicked against the marble like gunshots, each step echoing through the foyer with all the subtlety of an invasion. She'd changed into that red dress, the one I'd told her 100 times was too dangerous, too memorable, to her. Of course she wore it now. She wasn't just walking into my home, she was planting a flag. Jia appeared at the top of the stairs like a vision from a funeral, white silk, perfect hair, expression carved from ice. She descended slowly, deliberately, each step measured like a countdown to detonation. I stood between them, feeling less like a mafia boss and more like a referee at an execution. Mrs. Kang, Samira said first, her Korean accented but confident. Your home is breathtaking. Thank you, Jia replied in English, her words precise as surgical cuts. Though I wasn't aware we were expecting house guests. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp enough to draw blood. My husband failed to mention the specifics. Didn't he? Samira's smile was pure mischief. How unlike him. He's usually so detail-oriented. I watched my wife's expression remain perfectly neutral while something deadly flickered behind her eyes. Yes. Detail-oriented. That's certainly one way to describe his attention to outside interests. Ladies, I started. Tell me, Miss Blackwell, Jia continued as if I hadn't spoken, moving closer with the grace of a circling predator. How long have you been enjoying my husband's hospitality? Samira didn't flinch. About as long as you've been enduring it, I'd imagine. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jia stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell her jasmine perfume warring with Samira's vanilla. Interesting. You have opinions about my marriage. Just observations. Samira tilted her head. For instance, I observe that you call him my husband like he's a possession. A very expensive, very well-maintained possession. And you call him what, exactly? Jia's smile was razor-thin. Baby. Appa. Some other diminutive meant to make him feel like less of the criminal he actually is. I call him by his name, Samira shot back. Murayak. The thing he actually chose for himself, not the title his family bloodline forced on him. I'd survived gang wars with less tension than this. How progressive, Jia said softly, dangerously. Tell me, does calling him by his name make you feel special? Make you think you know him better than the woman who's shared his name for 5 years? No, Samira replied, her voice surprisingly gentle. But I know what he sounds like when he laughs. Do you? The silence that followed could have killed a lesser man. Jia's expression finally cracked, not into anger, but something worse. Something that looked almost like pain before she locked it away. Your room is on the 3rd floor, East Wing. I trust you can find your way. Or should my husband escort you? She looked at me with those cold, knowing eyes. He does seem invested in your comfort. Gee ah. The staff will bring dinner at 8, she continued, already turning away. We dress for meals in this house, Miss Blackwell. I trust even American lounges have dress codes. She walked away, silk whispering, jasmine fading, leaving Samira and me standing in the wreckage of that conversation. Well, Samira said after a moment. She's terrifying. You just called out my wife in her own house. Our house, you said. She grinned, but I saw her hands shaking slightly. Besides, someone had to break the ice. Might as well be the mistress. I closed my eyes. This is going to be a disaster. Probably, she agreed cheerfully. But at least it won't be boring. That's what I was afraid of. I called an emergency house meeting at 7 o'clock, which in retrospect was my second mistake of the day. The first was thinking I could control anything happening under this roof. There need to be ground rules, I announced, standing at the head of the dining table like I was negotiating a territory dispute instead of trying to prevent my personal life from imploding. For everyone's safety and sanity. Jia sat at the opposite end, positioned like a rival empress, sipping tea with the kind of precision that suggested she was imagining it was poison. She'd changed into a black evening dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Every hair in place. Every line of her body screaming controlled fury. Samira had claimed the seat directly to my right, the seat traditionally reserved for the lady of the house, wearing jeans and a silk camisole. Her feet were bare. Bare. In a formal dining room. With ancestral portraits glaring down at us. Rule 1, I continued, ignoring the way Jia's I twitched at Samira's casual posture. No one leaves the estate without security clearance. The Kurodas are trying to kill your girlfriend. Yes, we've established this, Jia interrupted smoothly. Does this rule apply to me as well, or am I still allowed to leave my own prison? It's not a prison. Rule 2, Samira cut in, reaching for the wine bottle and pouring herself a very generous glass. What's Rule 2, baby? I watched my wife's fingers tighten on her teacup. Perhaps Rule 2 should be about appropriate forms of address in mixed company. Oh, you mean like calling your husband Murayak SSI like he's a business associate? Samira smiled sweetly. Very formal. Very distant. Rule 2, I said loudly, before blood was spilled, is that all household staff report directly to me. No one discusses anything happening in this house with anyone outside these walls. How very Mafia of you, Jia observed. Shall we also use code names? Secret handshakes. Perhaps Miss Blackwell could be red flag and I could be collateral damage. Samira snorted into her wine. This isn't a joke, I snapped. People are trying to kill your mistress. Yes, we know. Jia set down her teacup with a delicate click. Tell me, husband, does Rule 2 include the staff not mentioning to my family that you've moved your prostitute into our home? She's not I started, but Samira held up her hand. It's okay, Murayak. Let her be mad. She's earned it. She looked at Jia with something that might have been respect. But for the record, Mrs. Kong, I run a legitimate business. High-end lounge, not a brothel. Though I can see how you'd confuse the two, given that your marriage is basically a business transaction. The silence was deafening. Jia's smile was pure ice. How observant. Yes, my marriage is a transaction. A very expensive, very binding transaction that comes with certain protections. Like this house. This name. This life. She leaned forward slightly. What does yours come with, Miss Blackwell? Bullet holes and broken windows. Ladies. Rule 3, Jia continued, her voice deadly calm. Should be about sleeping arrangements. I assume, Murayak, that your guest will be remaining in the East Wing. Or were you planning to shuffle between bedrooms like some kind of demented husband hotel? Samira's eyes found mine, challenging. Waiting. East Wing, I said, hating myself. Samira stays in the East Wing. How very diplomatic, Jia said. Rule 4, dinner is at 8. Every night. All of us. Together. Her smile could have cut glass. After all, if we're going to be one big happy family, we should at least pretend to be civilized. That's not. I think it's a great idea, Samira said, refilling her wine. Nothing says, functional household like forced family dinners. I looked between them, ice and fire, silk and sin, my past and my present colliding with the force of a tactical nuke. Any other rules, boss? Samira asked, her tone making it clear exactly what she thought of my authority here. I had a whole list. 23 rules, carefully planned, strategically sound. No, I said instead, defeated. I think we're done here. Wonderful, Jia said, standing with fluid grace. Then I'll see you both at 8 tomorrow. Do try to be on time, Miss Blackwell. Punctuality is a sign of respect. She left, taking all the oxygen with her. Samira looked at me, eyebrow raised. That went well. You sat in her seat. I know. She grinned. Worth it, though. Did you see her face? I was going to die in this house. Not from assassins, but from sheer domestic warfare. And somehow, I suspected I deserved it. The traitor's name was Park Dae-young, and he'd been with me for 7 years. 7 years of loyalty, blood oaths, and late-night strategy sessions where I'd trusted him with secrets that could have buried me. Turns out, loyalty has an expiration date. Show me again, I said to Min Jae, staring at the security footage on my office monitor. The timestamp read 3 days before the attack on Samira's lounge. The location was a dive bar in Itaewon, neutral territory, where deals got made and men got buried. On screen, Dae-young slid a manila envelope across a table to a man I recognized immediately. Kuroda Lieutenant. Japanese Yakuza. The kind of operator who specialized in making problems disappear. Or creating them. Lip readers confirmed it, Min Jae said quietly. He gave them everything. Her location, her schedule, her security gaps. Even told them about the private entrance you use. My hands curled into fists on the desk. Why? We brought him in an hour ago. He's downstairs. The basement of my estate wasn't designed for comfort. Concrete floors, industrial lighting, and soundproofing thick enough that a man could scream for days without anyone hearing. I'd used this room for negotiations before, the kind where only one party walked out. Dae-young was cable-tied to a metal chair, face already sporting fresh bruises from Min Jae's interview technique. He looked up when I entered, and I saw it immediately. Not fear. Resentment. Boss, he said, spitting blood. Finally. Thought you'd send your second to do all the work. Or maybe you're too busy playing house with your American whore to. I backhanded him hard enough that the chair rocked. Careful. I haven't decided if you're walking out of here yet. He laughed, the sound bitter and broken. Walking out. Boss, you stopped being the kind of man who makes those decisions the day you let that foreigner wrap you around her finger. He looked up at me, eyes blazing with conviction. You've gone soft. The whole organization sees it. You're spending more time in her bed than in our boardrooms. Taking risks for what? Some woman who doesn't even understand our world. So you sold her to the Kurodas. My voice was ice. You handed them a target, knowing exactly what they'd do. I handed them your weakness, he corrected. Thought maybe if she was gone, you'd remember who you are. What we built. Before you started caring more about bourbon and vanilla than blood and honor. The worst part was, I understood. In his mind, he wasn't betraying me, he was saving me. Saving the organization from a boss who'd let his heart compromise his judgment. He wasn't entirely wrong. How many others? I asked. How many of my men share your concerns? Enough. He smiled through bloody teeth. You think you can keep playing both sides? The dutiful husband and the lovesick fool. The crime lord and the romantic. You're splitting yourself in half, boss. And men like us? We don't survive being split. I crouched down to his level, close enough to see the conviction burning in his eyes. You're right about one thing, Dae-young. I have changed. I have let myself care about something beyond this organization. I stood, straightening my jacket. But you made one critical mistake. What's that? You assumed that made me weaker. I nodded to Min-jae. It didn't. It just gave me something worth killing for. I turned toward the door, each step measured and final. Boss. Dae-young called out, voice cracking. What are you going to do? I paused at the threshold. You wanted to know if I'd gone soft. I looked back at him. Min-jae will show you exactly how soft I've become. He'll take his time. Make it thorough. And when he's done, you'll understand something important. What? That a man who kills for duty is dangerous. But a man who kills for love. I smiled, cold and certain. He's absolutely unstoppable. I left him screaming. Upstairs, through the soundproofing, life continued. Samira was probably breaking more of Jia's unspoken rules. Jia was probably planning increasingly creative ways to make us all miserable. The mansion hummed with its usual routines, oblivious to the blood being spilled in its foundation. But I knew the truth now. The threat wasn't just external anymore. My own house was turning against me. And I'd have to burn out the rot before it consumed everything I was trying to protect. Even if it meant becoming the monster they feared I'd gone too soft to be. The charity gala was a circle of hell Dante forgot to mention, one where souls elite dressed in designer labels and smiled with veneered teeth while discussing human trafficking like it was stock portfolios. And I had to pretend my world wasn't falling apart. Smile, husband, Jia murmured beside me, her arm linked through mine with all the warmth of a business contract. She looked devastating in midnight blue silk, diamonds at her throat that cost more than most apartments. The perfect Mafia wife. Untouchable. Elegant. Absolutely miserable. The Choi family is watching, and your expression suggests you're planning their funeral. I'm planning several funerals, I muttered, but I smiled. The kind of smile that had closed billion-won deals and preceded body bags. She squeezed my arm, nails digging in subtly. Try to look like you don't actively hate being near me. Just for tonight. The thing was, I didn't hate being near her. I hated what we'd become, two people trapped in a gorgeous cage, performing for an audience that would devour us both if we showed weakness. Mr. Kong. The Minister of Finance approached, sake-flushed and oblivious. And your lovely wife. You two are the picture of marital bliss. If he only knew. Jia's laugh was perfect, cultured, demure, utterly fake. You're too kind, Minister. Though I'm afraid my husband has been terribly busy lately. New, business ventures. The slight emphasis on business was for my benefit only. I saw her then. Samira. Across the ballroom, partially hidden behind a marble column, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. She'd done her hair up, traded her usual bold makeup for something subtle, dangerous. She looked like she belonged here, which somehow made everything worse. Our eyes met across the crowd. Held. Murayak. Jia's voice pulled me back. The minister asked you a question. Apologies, I said smoothly, tearing my gaze away. What was that? The conversation blurred. Something about export tariffs and political favors. I nodded, smiled, played my part. But my attention kept drifting to that column, to the woman who shouldn't be here but insisted on coming anyway. I'm not hiding in your house while you parade around with her, she'd said that morning. I'll stay in the shadows, but I'm not staying home. Stubborn. Reckless. completely unaware that every second she spent in public was another second the Kurodas could find her. Or maybe she was aware. Maybe that was the point. "Excuse me," I said to the minister. "I need to check on security." Jia's grip tightened. Now. Now. I extracted myself gently, kissed her cheek for appearances, felt her flinch almost imperceptibly. "I'll return shortly." I moved through the crowd with practiced ease, nodding at associates, avoiding conversations, heading for that marble column like a man walking toward his own execution. Samira saw me coming. Smiled slightly. "Fancy seeing you here." "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly, positioning myself so we were hidden from most angles. Close enough that I could smell her perfume, see the pulse jumping in her throat. Probably not. She looked past me, toward where Jia stood surrounded by Seoul's elite. "She's beautiful, you know. In that terrifying, untouchable way. I can see why you married her. Politics married me to her. Not choice. And me?" She looked up at me, eyes darker than the dress. What was I? Choice or mistake? Both, I admitted. The best mistake I ever made. She moved closer, just an inch, her hand brushing mine in the shadows where no one could see. "Your wife is watching. Everyone's watching. You should go back to her. Play the dutiful husband." "I should. But you won't. Not yet." The space between us was electric, dangerous. One movement and we'd cross a line we couldn't uncross. Not here. Not with 300 witnesses and my wife 10 meters away. Murayak. My name on her lips was a plea and a challenge. "We can't." "I know. Someone will see." "I know. Your wife knows exactly what I am." I let my hand fully cover hers, hidden in the shadows. "A man who can't stay away from you even when it's smart. Even when it's safe. Even when every instinct says run." Her fingers laced with mine, gripped tight. "This is insane. Everything about us is insane." I glanced back at the ballroom, at Jia holding court like the queen she was trained to be. At the life I was supposed to want. But I'd rather have one moment of insane with you than a lifetime of sane with anyone else. That's the most romantic and stupid thing you've ever said. I specialize in both. She laughed softly, the sound wrapping around me like a promise. "Go. Before we cause a scandal even you can't cover up." I should have listened. Should have walked away, returned to my wife, played my part. Instead, I pulled Samira deeper into the shadows and kissed her like the world was ending. Because in many ways, it was. The first explosion took out the east gate at 2:47 a.m. The second shattered my bedroom window 30 seconds later. I was already moving, gun in hand, instinct overriding sleep. Gee-ah. But she was faster, already out of bed, pulling on a robe with the kind of practiced efficiency that reminded me she wasn't just a politician's daughter, she was a survivor. The panic room. "Now. I need to. Get your mistress and meet me there." Her voice was sharp, controlled. "They're here for her, which means they'll tear this house apart looking. Move." She was right. God help me, she was right. I ran. The hallway was chaos, alarms screaming, my men shouting coordinates, the distinctive crack of gunfire getting closer. The Kurodas weren't probing defenses anymore. This was a full assault. Professional. Coordinated. Designed to end tonight. Samira's door was already open. She stood in the center of the room, wearing my shirt, just my shirt, holding a lamp like a weapon. Her eyes were wide but focused. "They're here for me," she said. Not a question. Yes. Come on. I grabbed her hand and ran, pulling her through corridors I'd walked 1,000 times, now transformed into a war zone. Behind us, glass shattered. Men screamed. The smell of smoke and gunpowder filled the air. The panic room was in the wine cellar, reinforced steel, independent air supply, enough provisions for a week. Jia was already inside, her white robe now streaked with dust, hair falling from its perfect arrangement. She looked more human than I'd seen her in years. She also looked furious. Inside, I barked, pushing Samira through the door. Both of you. Now. What about you? Samira grabbed my arm. Murayak. I need to coordinate the defense. Minjae needs. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. Jia moved with surprising speed, grabbing my other arm and physically hauling me inside. Don't be an idiot. Your men are trained for this. You die out there, and this whole organization falls apart. She slammed her palm on the lock mechanism. Get inside. The door sealed with a hydraulic hiss, cutting off the chaos outside. Suddenly, we were in silence. The three of us. Trapped in 20 square meters of reinforced steel. With nothing to do but wait. And face each other. Well, Samira said after a moment, still clutching that absurd lamp. This is cozy. Jia laughed. Actually laughed, a sharp, slightly hysterical sound. Cozy. Yes. Nothing says cozy like a panic room during a home invasion. She slid down the wall, sitting on the cold floor, her designer robe pooling around her. This is my life now. Hiding in a basement with my husband and his mistress while Yakuza try to kill us all. To be fair, Samira said, surprisingly gentle, they're really just trying to kill me. Oh, that makes it so much better. I stood between them, useless, my gun trained on a door that wouldn't open from the outside. On the monitors, I could see my men fighting, retreating, establishing defensive positions. Professional. Controlled. They didn't need me. But I felt helpless anyway. He talks about you, you know, Jia said suddenly, looking at Samira. In his sleep. Mumbles your name like a prayer or a curse. I'm never sure which. Samira sat down across from her, cross-legged in my shirt, the lamp finally abandoned. He doesn't talk about you at all. Which somehow seems worse. Because there's nothing to say. Jia's smile was bitter. We're a contract, not a romance. Two people legally bound to share a name and a bed and absolutely nothing else. Do you love him? The question hung in the air like smoke. Jia was quiet for a long moment. Outside, muffled through steel, the battle raged. I love what he represented. Stability. Power. An alliance that kept my family safe. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw something crack in her perfect facade. But do I love him? The man who paces at night? Who checks his phone every 5 minutes when he thinks I'm not watching? Who looks at me like I'm a beautiful ghost haunting his life? She shook her head. How can you love someone who was never really yours? I'm sorry, I said, the words inadequate, useless. Don't be. Jia pulled her knees up, looking younger than her years. I knew what I was signing up for. A political marriage. A strategic alliance. My parents prepared me for everything except. She gestured vaguely at Samira. Except the part where he'd actually fall in love with someone. Samira's eyes found mine, soft and sad. This wasn't supposed to happen. No, Jia agreed. But it did. And now we're all paying for it. She looked between us. The ironic thing. I don't even hate you, Miss Blackwell. I should. God knows I want to. But you're just another woman trapped by his choices. Like me. I'm not trapped, Samira said quietly. I chose this. Chose him. Knowing exactly what it meant. Then you're braver than I am, Jia said. Or more foolish. Probably both. Above us, something exploded. The panic room breach happened at 4:13 a.m. 1 second we were breathing recycled air and tension. The next, the emergency ventilation shaft exploded inward, metal shrieking, and 2 Kuroda operatives dropped through like demons descending. I moved on instinct, firing twice. One went down. The other was faster, already pivoting towards Samira with the kind of focus that meant he knew exactly who he'd come for. I threw myself between them, felt the burn of a blade slicing across my ribs, hot and immediate. My gun clattered away. The operative raised his weapon. And Jia appeared behind him like a ghost in white silk. She moved with a precision I'd never seen, never suspected. One hand in his hair, yanking his head back. The other holding a blade, thin, elegant, lethal, that materialized from somewhere in her perfect bun. She drew it across his throat with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Blood sprayed. The operative dropped. Jia stood over him, breathing hard, her white robe now painted red, that blade still in her hand. Her hair had finally come completely undone, falling around her shoulders in a way that made her look less like an ice queen and more like an avenging angel. "Well," she said, voice remarkably steady. "That's one way to redecorate." I stared at her, pressing my hand to my bleeding side. "Where did you learn that?" She wiped the blade on the dead man's jacket with casual precision. "You think my father married me off without insurance? Without making sure I could protect myself in a world full of men like you?" She looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." "You're not fine, you're perforated." She was already moving, tearing strips from her ruined robe with hands that didn't shake. "Samira, help me get pressure on this before he bleeds out from sheer masculine stupidity." Samira was still frozen, staring at the bodies, at Jia, at the woman who'd just killed to save her life. You just killed a man, yes." Jia pressed the fabric hard against my wound, making me hiss. "Shocking, I know. The decorative wife knows how to handle a blade. Maybe I should add it to my resume. Skills include flower arrangement, classical piano, and emergency throat slitting." Jia. "Don't." She looked up at me, and her eyes were blazing. "Don't you dare thank me. Don't make this about honor or duty or whatever convenient emotion helps you sleep at night." Her hands were still steady, still applying pressure, but I could see the adrenaline starting to shake through her. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because I'm tired of men deciding who lives and dies in my own damn house." Above us, the fighting was dying down. The monitors showed my men regaining control, Kuroda operatives retreating or dead. We'd survived. Barely. Samira finally moved, kneeling beside us, her hands joining Jia's on my wound. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For saving me. For all of this." Jia's laugh was sharp, brittle. "Don't thank me yet. We're still trapped in a basement with corpses and a bleeding idiot." She looked at the bodies, at the blood on her hands, at the wreckage of her carefully controlled life. "Besides, I didn't save you for him. I saved you because..." She trailed off, something vulnerable crossing her face. "Because maybe we're not so different, you and I. Both trapped by the choices of violent men. Both pretending to be stronger than we feel." "You're plenty strong," Samira said. That was. I've never seen anything like that. My father's parting gift when I turned 18. "The world is dangerous for women," he said. "Especially women married to monsters." Jia's smile was sad. He wasn't wrong. "I'm not a monster," I managed, though blood loss was making everything fuzzy. "No," Jia agreed, pressing harder, whether to stop the bleeding or punish me, I wasn't sure. "You're worse. You're a man who actually cares, which makes all of this so much more painful." She looked between us, her perfect mask finally, completely shattered. "A monster I could hate. But you?" She shook her head. "You're just human. Flawed. Trying to love two women in a world that only allows you one." Jia. "The bleeding's slowing," she said clinically, avoiding my eyes. "You'll live. Unfortunately for all of us, you'll live." The monitors showed Minjae approaching the panic room, the all-clear signal flashing. The siege was over. But looking at Jia, at her blood-stained hands and fallen hair and the blade still within reach, I realized I'd never really known my wife at all. She wasn't ice. She was steel. Tempered. Sharp. Absolutely lethal when necessary. And somehow, that made everything so much more complicated. The meeting happened 3 days later in a warehouse that smelled like old fish and older blood. Neutral territory. No weapons. Just 2 bosses and the weight of too many corpses between us. Kuroda Takashi sat across from me like a statue carved from contempt. 70 years old, wire-thin, with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. He sipped tea from a porcelain cup that probably cost more than the building we were sitting in. "You look terrible, Kong-san," he observed in flawless Korean. "The wound? Or the guilt?" "Both. No point lying to a man who'd been playing this game since before I was born." My side still burned where the blade had carved through. Jia's makeshift bandaging had saved my life, but every breath reminded me of the cost. "You made your point. My home. My family. You got through. And yet, everyone I sent is dead." He set down his cup with precise gentleness. "Your wife is quite resourceful. I did not account for that variable." "Neither did I." He smiled, thin and knowing. "We never do we? Account for the women. We treat them like decorations, bargaining chips, beautiful cages to display our power." He leaned forward slightly. "And then we're surprised when the cage grows teeth." I thought of Jia, blade in hand, blood on silk. "What do you want, Kuroda-san? You didn't call this meeting to discuss my marriage. Didn't I?" His eyes were sharp. "Your marriage is the foundation of Seoul's peace treaty. The Kwon family and the Kong family, united through blood and contract. Remove that foundation, and everything crumbles." He paused. "Or perhaps, it's already crumbling. Perhaps that's why you brought your American whore into your home. Because you've already decided the marriage is dead." "Careful," I said quietly. "Or what? You'll kill me? Start a war you can't win?" He shook his head. "No. You're here because you're tired, Kong-san. Tired of living split in half. Tired of pretending to love a woman you respect but don't want. Tired of hiding the woman you want but can't have." He refilled his tea with steady hands. "So let me offer you something. A deal." "I'm listening." "I end the contract on your mistress. No more attempts. No more bullets. She lives. You live. Your organization stays intact." He sipped. "In exchange, you publicly divorce the Kwon daughter. Dissolve the treaty. Let the territories fall where they may." My blood turned to ice. "You want me to start a civil war?" "I want you to finish one," he corrected. "The treaty was always temporary. A bandage on a wound that never healed. The Kwon family and yours hate each other. Always have. The marriage just gave you an excuse to pretend otherwise." He smiled. "I'm simply removing the pretense. Let the strongest survive. As it should be. And if I refuse? Then your mistress dies. Your wife dies. You watch everyone you care about bleed out while I systematically dismantle everything you've built." His voice was conversational, pleasant. "I have time. I have patience. And I have absolutely nothing left to lose." "Why?" The question came out raw. "Why do you care about my marriage?" "Because chaos is profitable, Kong-san. Because a unified soul is bad for my business interests. Because I'm old and bored and watching you destroy yourself over 2 women is the most entertainment I've had in years." He set down his cup with finality. "But mostly because I want to see if you'll actually do it. If you'll choose love over duty. Passion over peace. The woman you want over the empire you've built." I stared at him, this devil in a suit, offering me exactly what I wanted wrapped in poison. "You're asking me to burn down Seoul. I'm asking you to be honest. He stood, straightening his jacket. The marriage is already dead. The treaty is already broken. You're just too much of a coward to admit it. He paused at the door. You have 48 hours. Divorce her, and your mistress lives. Stay married, and I burn everything you love to the ground. He left me sitting there, surrounded by ghosts and impossible choices. I thought about Jia, her hands bloody, her hair undone, saving the life of the woman who destroyed our marriage. I thought about Samira, brave and reckless, choosing me knowing it could kill her. I thought about the treaty, the peace, the empire I'd built on the foundation of a loveless contract. And I realized Kuroda was right. The cage hadn't been mine alone. Jia had been trapped too. Married to a man who respected her but didn't love her. Forced to smile and perform and pretend while her husband's heart belonged to someone else. I'd been so focused on my own prison, I'd never seen hers. I pulled out my phone. Dialed. It's me, I said when she answered. We need to talk. Really talk. About what comes next. Jia's sigh was soft, resigned. I know. I've been waiting for this conversation for 3 years. I'm sorry. Don't be. Her voice was steady. Just, be honest. For once in our marriage, be completely honest. I looked at the warehouse, at the empty chair where the devil had sat, at the ruins of everything I thought I knew. I want a divorce, I said. The silence on the other end was infinite. Then, finally. Me too. The divorce papers were signed in the same dining room where we'd had our disastrous first family dinner. Poetic, in a way that made my ribs ache. Jia sat across from me, wearing white again, not a wedding dress this time, but a power suit that said she was walking out of this marriage the same way she'd walked in. On her own terms. She signed her name with the same precision she did everything else, then slid the papers across the table. That's it, then, she said. Not a question. That's it. I signed below her name, sealing the end of 5 years of pretending. Your father will be furious. Will probably try to kill you. Will definitely cut off the alliance. She smiled, and for the first time since I'd known her, it looked genuine. But that's not your problem anymore, is it? Not really. The business is split according to the contract. I keep the import operations and the Gangnam properties. You keep everything else and all the headaches that come with it. She stood, smoothing her jacket. And the war that's coming? The one Kuroda wants. That's yours too. Jia. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't apologize again. Don't thank me. Don't make this harder than it already is. She picked up her bag, the expensive one I'd bought her for our second anniversary, back when I still thought gifts could substitute for love. I'm not the villain in your story, Murayak. But I'm not the victim either. I'm just a woman who deserves better than being someone's obligation. You do deserve better. I know. She walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth. I hope she makes you happy. I hope she's worth everything you're about to lose. Because it's going to be a lot. She is. Jia nodded once, final. Then maybe this wasn't all a waste. She looked back at me, and I saw the girl she must have been before duty and blood politics carved her into ice. Goodbye, Murayak. Try not to die too quickly. It would make the paperwork complicated. Then she was gone. Just like that. 5 years reduced to footsteps echoing on marble and the faint scent of jasmine fading in the air. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the signed papers. Proof that I'd just ended a peace treaty, started a war, and chosen chaos over stability. She's really gone. I turned. Samira stood in the doorway, wearing jeans and one of my shirts, hair messy, makeup free. She looked nothing like Jia's polished perfection. She looked real. She's really gone. Samira moved closer, studying my face. You okay? No. I pulled her down into my lap, burying my face in her neck, breathing in bourbon and vanilla. I just declared war on half of Seoul, destroyed a political alliance, and probably condemned us both to a very short, very violent future. So, a typical Tuesday for you? I laughed despite everything. Something like that. She pulled back, framing my face with her hands. Are you sure? About this? About us? Because there's still time to. No, there isn't. I kissed her, slow and certain. There's never been time to go back. Not since the first moment I saw you and knew I was absolutely fucked. Romantic. I'm a crime lord, not a poet. I stood, pulling her with me. But I'm your crime lord. For however long this lasts. For whatever war comes next. For. Forever, she suggested, smiling. I was going to say, until someone shoots me, but forever works too. She laughed, the sound bright and clear and everything Jia's house had never been. You know this is insane, right? Kuroda's going to come for us. The Kwan family's going to come for us. Half your own organization probably thinks you've lost your mind. They're not wrong. And we could die. Probably will die. This whole thing could end in blood and bullets and. I kissed her again, harder this time, pouring 5 years of restraint and secrets and stolen moments into it. When I pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Let them come, I said. Let all of them come. I'm done hiding. Done splitting myself in half. Done pretending I'm someone I'm not. I touched her face, memorizing the curve of her smile. You asked me once if you were a choice or a mistake. You're neither. You're the first honest thing I've done in my entire life. That's definitely the most romantic thing you've ever said. I'm getting better. You really are. She kissed me softly. So what now? We just, wait for the world to burn. No. I pulled her toward the door, toward whatever future we'd just chosen. We burn it first. On our terms. Together. Now that, Samira said, grinning, sounds like a plan. Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in that city, enemies were gathering. Wars were brewing. My ex-wife was starting a new life. My empire was fracturing. But inside this house, this cage I'd finally escaped, I had everything I actually wanted. A woman who loved me for who I was, not what I represented. A future uncertain but honest. And for the first time in 5 years, I could finally breathe. Even if that breath smelled like smoke and tasted like war. It was mine. We were finally, impossibly, dangerously free. And I wouldn't trade it for all the peace treaties in the world.